Hello and welcome to Stringer Podcast number 21. Got 21 letters in my name. Not even making that up. 777. 21 letters in my name. So this must be a pretty special podcast, except for the fact that I'm recording the intro without my microphone. I have a special microphone, one that I've just, over the months continually spit on, and I feel guilty giving to anyone else. But I can't find it. Dylan, who does all the technical producing for the podcast, does a really great job of keeping things organized, sometimes so organized that a simple brain like mine can't even find it. Mike Valente is on the podcast at Valente Variety on Twitter and at Valente Variety on Instagram. Cool dude, in-game host for the Toronto Marlies. I've known him for a few years now. He's a good buddy of Taylor Schold, that if you listen to the podcast, he was on a few weeks ago. And he comes in, talks a little shop, talks a little bit of history, and talks about doing your own thing. But before we get to Mike, as much as I know you want to hear his sweet, sweet voice, up first, the Stringer Big Weekend, kicking it off Friday, April 27th. Why not go to the Raptors tailgate party? These tailgate parties have been an absolute phenomenon. I was fortunate enough to shoot stills in the first year in Game 7 against the Nets, and the photos were stunning. The emotion, the community. I remember hearing a Let's Go Raptors chant start seemingly 2 blocks away, and then like a wildfire, I heard it rush up and surround me. It was definitely a very, very unique experience, and I think, the fact that we see it all the time on broadcast shows that we got something special going on in Toronto. So if you haven't checked it out yet, you gotta. Plus, you get the added benefit of cheering on our Raps as they look to close out Washington. So why not be a team player? Come on, everyone needs a team player right now. It starts at 7 p.m. outside the ACC in a place we affectionately call Jurassic Park at 15 York Street. Saturday, the 28th, Todd Graham is at the Underground Cafe, 9:30 p.m., 670 Queen Street East. $15 at the door. It's been a while since I've seen a comedy show, and admittedly, I've got a special spot in my heart for Todd Graham. Now, the show, though, comes with a couple notes that all should take heed of before going, so I feel, obliged as your host, as the person recommending this show, to share them with you. Starting it off, warning, Todd Graham may digress. Todd Graham is closer than he appears. Todd Graham has been recommended within reason. Todd Graham is not unfunny. Todd Graham breaks the mold of contemporary stand-ups. Todd Graham is a preferred customer at coffee time. I don't know where he gets that. Tim Hortons all the way, but whatever. Todd Graham does not speak in the third person in person, thank God. Please enjoy Todd Graham responsibly. If that hasn't beat into your head, come meet up with me Saturday night, heading to the Underground Cafe, 670 Queen Street East at 9:30 p.m. And Sunday, Bad Fish, a tribute to Sublime. Here's a story for you. I got into Sublime when I was, I think about 16, because of a girl. Go figure. There was a girl in and around the Ottawa area. She listened to them on repeat on her Panasonic Discman, anti-skip, obviously. And so what I do, you know it, listen to Sublime on repeat and learned all the words. So if you want to relive my teenage years, I encourage you to go to seatgiant.ca and get your very own teleportation tickets to allow you to listen to Bad Fish, a tribute to Sublime. And guess what? If you use promo code STRINGER, you'll get an extra discount on those sweet Santeria tickets. If you hate Sublime or just don't like the idea of a tribute show, after I finish scolding you in public, wherever you might be, you can use SeatGiant for just about any event you want to attend in Toronto or anywhere else you might be traveling to. Go see sporting events, concerts, festivals, and receive a discount on all of it just by using promo code STRINGER. Pretty sweet deal. Please remember that if you have an event coming up, anything you want promoted, hit us up on Twitter at Stringer Podcast or email us podcast@thestringers, that's stringers with a Z.com, and we will feature it on the intro. And if you don't like our ideas, stick it. No, that's cool. You can just use seatgiant.ca and use promo code STRINGER to save a few bucks on all of Toronto's events, whether we pump it on the podcast or not. Mike Valente, number 21 of the podcast, heading your way. But first, if you've listened to us before, there's only one thing left to do, and that's for Dylan to first of all, find my microphone, and then hit the button and cue the sax.
No, I'm good. I just dressed up for you, Clay.
My goodness. I don't even dress up. I should remember. I'm like, my aim every single day is to wear not what I wore yesterday.
That's a good goal.
Is to wear something different. Because it's so easy just to like look over at the pile and be like, no, that kind of went together.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it on.
Yeah.
So, Welcome, I appreciate you not only just making the time, but also putting up with the fact that everything is in a certain state of disarray. You walk in, you're dealing with server issues, and then there's equipment strewn all over the main room, which is a bit of a pet peeve of mine.
This place looks great, honestly. Honestly. I'm calling it the Stringer Lounge.
You're too kind.
Right?
Trademark.
You like that, don't you?
Oh, we have to invite people back to the Stringer Lounge.
I saw like celebrities out there.
We should definitely have the Stringer Lounge. I can see it now. Mm-hmm. And we have athletes come through.
Of course.
And it's a comfy couch and like a good vibe and the lighting's just right. And you interview them on the comfortable couch.
Wouldn't that be nice?
For like 5 to 7 minutes.
Yes.
We've seen iterations of that at the draft.
Like
different NHL drafts. I'm thinking NHL at least. I think NBA as well, where they have like a social lounge.
Yes.
And I'm doing air quotes and no one can see me but Mike. They have a social lounge which you kind of come in and it's like Snapchat and IG enabled and like sign your name on the screen and it shows up with your photo. That's what we're going to establish here. It's going to be the Stringer Lounge featuring Mike Valente.
Fantastic.
Mike Valente's on the podcast, everyone.
Thank you so much, Clay, for having me. I'm so glad the restraining order has been lifted. What has been, like 5 years since I've seen you?
Oh, now I'm trying to put it together. We have a mutual friend, Taylor Schold.
That's right. What a guy.
Taylor's such a good guy.
He is a great guy.
I have, like, such a big heart for people. No, I don't have a big heart. That's the wrong phrase. I have such like a big space in my heart for people who make it their aim to connect other people.
Yes.
And build a community and make sure we're all like together and being friendly and helping each other. And that's what he does so well.
He does. And he's been doing it for a long time. Like he started the Schold Media Group in 2011. I do a lot of stuff with him now too, with some video content. We started a video series. But yeah, his goal has always been to, hey, how can we help people navigate our way through this crazy industry that we work in?
And how can we just make a community out of it? Because so often things are so competitive, right?
Absolutely.
And I think we all have a competitive streak in us.
I think so.
Many of us come from an athletic background. And it's kind of there, but it's also just, I think it takes a certain kind of person to want to be on camera and holding a microphone in front and center.
Those guys are terrible.
What jerks. And that same kind of person generally wants to be the one on camera holding the microphone, not the one waiting for his turn to be on camera. So in what's usually such a competitive atmosphere, it's great when we can kind of just all meet and do what we love most, and that's generally having a pint. Let's be honest.
Having a beer.
I learned from some of the CBC folk when I was just getting into hockey and just starting my short-lived career on air. It was like playoff time, and they roll out of the studio at whatever it was, 1:30 a.m., and we'd have a quick half hour to grab a beer. Or if you're super skilled, if you're a wily veteran, they could do 4 in half an hour.
I've been there myself with some of these CBC people you're referring to.
and whether it's knowing the bartender and having it all prepared for them when they get there, or if it's just straight up saying, no, I want 4 of these, and then subsequently finishing them in the next 30 minutes, I was impressed. But as I said, my career was pretty short-lived.
Well, it always amazed me that some of the on-air talent would like literally call the bar and order the beers so that they were ready. That to me was fascinating. I was like, wow, that's power.
That reminds me of Cheers, or like anything like Cheers. Like you can even liken, if you want, to Friends at the Central Perk. There we go. I got it.
You got it.
But I want a spot that I could call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to know someone so well where we're not actually we're friendly, but we have like a working relationship. That they're the bartender. Exactly.
Yes.
I'm the customer. Yes. And I call them up and they're like, oh, you again? We know what you want. And I'm like, I'll be there. and I roll in, and that's how I imagine the rest of my 30s going. Like, it's striving for that kind of perfection.
So you have big goals, Clay.
Oh, yeah. Well, if we boil it all down, it's really about building relationships.
I think
here,
so.
and bringing people together. That's what
You're not wrong.
I'm spinning bullshit pretty hard.
Effortlessly, though.
Oh, yeah, I try. You mentioned the video series with SMG.
Yes.
I loved the one with actually Megan Robinson,
yes,
who was on the podcast recently. And I've known Megan for a very long time. And that's when it clicked. I'm like, oh, yeah, I have good friends in media, too, that I can reach out to and bring on the podcast. I was like, why haven't I thought of Megan? That was inspired by your video.
Oh, there you go.
Kat Stefankovich as well. Kat and I.
Can't say enough about her.
She's such a delight,
yes,
isn't she? And
she is.
She, huge heart, just warm personality.
Yeah.
And I don't want to list her resume for her, but she has a very diverse background in both, hosting and acting and television. And I remember when we became friends being amazed, like, wow, she wants to talk to me?
Yeah.
She includes me in the conversation.
Yeah.
And of course she does. It's ridiculous to say not.
During that interview, I actually told her this story and it was completely genuine. So I was living in Winnipeg for a couple years as a sports reporter, and I came home for Christmas to see my family, as one does. And I hadn't been to a Raptors game in a very long time. I knew of Kat, but didn't really, hadn't experienced her on air hosting for the Raptors. And as one does as an in-arena host, there's games that are being played during the timeouts and on the court. And this guy had no idea what he was doing during one of the games. He was a contestant, right? But she handled it so flawlessly that it actually caught my eye. Like, it was just like, I was transfixed. I'm like, wow, she handled that perfectly. It was almost like nothing went wrong because she handled it so well. And she's a super impressive presenter. Every word that she says hits. And that's the goal, I think, for an on-air person, right? Every word you want to connect to the viewer, and I think she does it perfectly.
And her personality comes through. Like,
yeah.
I think of this when I watch television, and I watch, say it's The Walking Dead or whatever. And somewhere in my mind, I'm like, that person's really like that character. Mm-hmm. Like, I think of Norman Reedus and Walking Dead. I'm like, no, he definitely probably carries a crossbow with him everywhere. And then I have to check myself and be like, no, he's just really good at his job.
Right.
That I actually believe that's who he is. And Kat handles things so well where a piece of her personality comes through, where we all go through all sorts of things in life, right? We have ups and we have downs and whatever. But she is always at this level where I'm like, oh no, she's just perfect all the time. Like, her life is just great. She handles it amazing all the time. What I find interesting about those games, and you'll know this probably with your work with the Marlies, I never appreciated this. I was years in MLSE before I actually understood that they're on, like, a ticking clock.
Yeah.
That you have to wrap up by a certain time, or else there's, like, very large penalties that come from the league. Mm-hmm. And so when you get something like you described, where... yeah, you're trying to guide someone and help someone through, but at the same time, you only have like 45 more seconds to get this done.
Totally. You got to keep it running smoothly.
To do that calmly, whoo!
Smoothly and swiftly, for sure. Yeah, well, think about it. Like, as a fan, you're not really paying attention to this, right? But if we're playing a game with some contestant during a TV timeout, that's 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes to execute this game. Hopefully they win. Hopefully it's entertaining. But you're right. You got to keep it moving, because if they delay, if they take too much time and the puck drops, that's not ideal. You're in trouble.
So Winnipeg.
Yes.
I've been to Winnipeg once.
And?
Whiskey Dicks.
Oh, that's not a thing anymore, but that was very popular.
It's gone?
Yeah, it's what is it now?
Oh,
it's
no.
Something else. That's a very big thing in Winnipeg. A lot of turnover with
that's
certain
such a shame.
Establishments.
Because I love this place. I was, first of all, funny enough, tipped off by Kat and her old roommate, Amberly, to go to this place. I was there for like 3 days visiting a friend, and they were like, oh, there's a bar you got to check out. It was called Whiskey Dicks, and yes, it's as awesome as it sounds, and it was pretty much as country as it sounds, but it had like multi-level decks, like hardwood decks around it, and then it had multi-levels inside the building, which was gigantic as well. And so you could have like 5 different types of music going on as you kind of wander from spot to spot to spot.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how my night went. I like aimlessly wandered with this group of friends, and then we eventually all lose each other and then magically meet up by like the tree near the hip hop DJ or whatever.
Just based on your description, that kind of reminded me of the Madison House here in Toronto. Different levels, right?
It's exactly like the Maddie.
Very popular university spot, right? Different music in different rooms.
University.
I don't know. Why, do you still go there? Were you there on Friday?
It was Thursday, but
pub night.
It wasn't until I was probably in my, I don't know, mid to late 20s. I was like 26, 27, when someone's like, that's university spot, right?
You became that guy.
And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, oh, I'm that guy now.
Yeah. But you were probably just going for a pint. You weren't raging.
No, I was not raging.
Exactly.
I appreciated how eclectic it was.
Yes, totally.
I'll put it that way. And, it was kind of near where I was working at the time, so it kind of worked out. But the Madison House, that was probably, I think I spent, so my I think it was 26th birthday, it lined up really, really well, because when I started in hockey and I started with, the Maple Leafs and the Marlies organization, we were in a time where around, early to mid-April, we would be wrapping up.
Yes.
That would be the end of our broadcast year. And so we'd have our end of year party, where everyone kind of gets together. And I was both on Leafs and Marlies side, so we had 2 end of year parties. And my birthday is also right around this time. So it just was this really big birthday week for me. And it was, one of the nights at one of our rap parties was at the Madison.
Oh, perfect.
And I will very clearly remember that night for not being able to remember it at all. But I think that was the last time. And then I was told, they're like, oh, you're at the Madison? And then that's when the whole story ensued.
Gotcha.
And I can't do that anymore.
No.
It's funny how that happens. Do you have you must have favorite spots of the city.
Yeah, I think my friends and I usually go close to Union, which I like to get away from, right? Because it's near the subway and the GO train. Yeah. For people who have to travel north. But I like going out into the different neighborhoods, because as we all know, Toronto has 1,000 different neighborhoods.
Completely.
It's wonderful. Speaking of birthdays, my birthday this past December, we went to Folly, which is a brew pub at College and Dovercourt.
No way. So I'm going to have to check it out. I've never been there.
It's not even a bit out there. It's just not central.
No.
And I like getting out to different places like that, right? So... yeah, that one comes to mind. Find your
little brew houses.
Yes.
Yeah. I was out with a buddy, Alex Anthony. We've done some work together. And we were both talking about how we're so over the idea of clubbing.
Yes.
We're like, I would not be better off if I never step foot in a club ever again.
I agree.
And we kind of laughed that we're getting old. Oh yeah, definitely our childhood's behind us. Because, for me... Alex is, he's got a great girlfriend, doing big things, but I'm still single. And I think in my head, I haven't left 24, right? Yeah. So then when it kind of hits you and it's like, no, I don't want to, I kind of want to sit in a pub and watch a game and have a couple pints reasonably and go home and sleep and wake up without a hangover. That you start realizing the age we're at. No, not you, Mike. You're young.
Well,
you're spry.
I'm 30.
No, yeah, you're great.
Okay.
You're great. You've got all your best years ahead of you.
I can kind of connect to what you're saying there, though, because I'm still single myself, and I've noticed, especially since I returned from Winnipeg, which was about a year ago, that since I've been back, a lot of people have girlfriends and boyfriends and are married and having kids, so the going out percentage among my group of friends has been lowered, and I don't care for that. You know what I mean? Yes, I'm single. I don't want to go clubbing either.
No,
but I still like to have a good time, and I still think that even if you're married and you have kids, kids is different. Right. I should mention that, obviously. But even if you're in a relationship, you can still go out with your friends.
I would hope so.
You know what I mean? It's a little sad to me when
we need to start a club, I think.
The Stringer Lounge.
It's the Stringer Lounge, and we're going to serve beer. That's what we're going to
open
do.
bar.
It's probably just going to be the two of us.
Yes. We'll get some veggie trays and some fruit platters.
I would ask for some cheese, but nothing too strong because
Right.
it upsets my sensitive digestive tract.
Yes. By the way, I just need to thank you for having me on the show and also pushing back this interview about a week because last week we were supposed to record this and I got sick.
On
and
my birthday.
On your birthday, too.
On my
How
you were
disrespectful.
my birthday guest.
Oh, my
Mike.
goodness. And I've
you
come
actually
empty-handed.
You saved me.
Oh, did I?
Because we were in the stinking weeds with a project.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, how am I going to get through this?
Okay.
And then Dylan, who produces everything and is not in on our interview or our chat today, he let me know that you were ill. And I'd never want to cheer for someone being sick.
No, you didn't mind.
I was very thankful
Yeah, okay.
that it bought me an extra hour of my day to try and stress over
Yeah.
something else. Oh, I'm really glad you're here.
For sure. And I want to make it clear I wasn't on my deathbed, but I lost my voice. And
Oh,
I don't
no.
know if you're aware, Clay, but with podcasts, you need audio. So I couldn't provide that for you.
I think we should do the first ever American Sign Language podcast.
We'd be speechless.
It'd be an hour of just
But yeah,
room tone.
I was very much on Buckley's medication. I was just downing it over and over. So thank you for having me in.
Here, actually, I wanted to chat about this because if you have friends having kids, I have several friends having kids.
Mm-hmm.
What is the appropriate etiquette for liking the photos of kids? How many do you have to like a week? Because they post several.
Yes.
How many kid photos do you have to like a week from anyone?
Are we talking Instagram, Facebook? What are we talking here?
Let's stick in the Instagram world,
yes.
where they're flooding you with baby picture after baby picture. What are we required as single men that we're friends? What are we required to like?
Honestly, I know everyone has their ways of liking photos and what criteria they have to meet. For me, it's if you're a good friend of mine, I'm most likely going to like it.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean?
You're a way better human than I am.
No, but I don't know if it is that. It's just everyone has their preferences. Like, people will message me when I post something and say, hey, that was great. But then they didn't like it online.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I'm trying to get away from taking
jerks.
that personally because really,
how am I supposed to mic up my brand
well,
if my friends are messaging me and not double tapping my photo?
but see, this is something I'm going through in the last year or so. As people in the media, as people in media production and broadcasting, we do have to have a pretty nice following on the social media and have up our game as much as we can, right? But I struggle with that because I don't like being on it that much. You know what I mean? And you have to find that balance of, okay, I need to make my presence known and get my brand out there, but at the same time, I do want to get off my phone. You know, you're hearing people say that more now. Get off your phone, enjoy life again, have a conversation like we're doing now, even if it's not being recorded. You know, like just have a real conversation with someone.
What are you trying to say here, Mike?
Yeah. Well, more often than not, you'll walk into a room now with a group of people and they're all staring down at their phone. And I'm not trying to sound like a 90-year-old grandfather here, but it's true. I'm trying to put the phone down and actually enjoy life.
So I, first of all, I think the correct answer is once a week.
Once a week, sorry, for the
once
baby
a
photos?
week.
Okay.
But on the social media front, so I had just gotten into the media industry when Twitter became a thing.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough. One thing that's good is I got to pick whatever handle I wanted.
That's
and
true.
Along with a lot of my colleagues at the time,
Yeah.
we didn't have no underscores and no numbers and no fancy anythings. We just got to write our name in, and then it accepted because relatively no one was on it yet. So in the first, let's say year, 18 months, it was whoever we wanted to be. Mm-hmm. Because in a sense, I was part of a group of, I felt at least, pioneers. Let's say pioneers in this city or in Canada or in sports in this city or something. But I felt like, you know, my colleagues and we were early in, so we got to do whatever we wanted. And then experts, air quotes again, experts came in and started telling us what we should be. And then it became very much like a news timeline. And there was I remember the rule of threes, every day you should have a reply, a retweet, and an original tweet in groups of 3 like that, and that should be the balance. And I remember being taught, instructed this by an outside person who came in, And we're like, okay, these are the rules. You got to do rules of 3. And we kind of felt that was weird because we kind of developed something. But we go heavy news, let's say, and information. And then we were told, no, personality has to come back. And so then it swaps back that way. And it's this weird balance where you ride a line and once in a while you get your hand slapped because you're trying to be both informative and engaging. I had someone actually that works alongside me says if you're really good, especially on the brand side at social media, you're towing a line of almost being fired. Because that's kind of, you want to be edgy, you want to be at the forefront, you want to cut through the noise,
right?
But at the same time, you can't say something wrong. And I joked with remember the Houston Rockets tweet? Like, did you ever see that? It was a horse head and a gun.
Oh,
so
maybe,
they were, I guess, they were in a playoff series, and it looked like it was going one way, and so they just put up a horse head and a gun emoji. And to be fair, it was really funny. But right away, we were like, "Oh no, that guy's in for it." And sure enough, he lost his job like the next day, and there was a formal apology. But it was also kind of edgy and kind of funny, and it got a lot of response.
Right, it's walking that line, yeah.
And anyway, long story long, I then moved behind the camera to where I don't have to be on social media anymore, and I've lost. Well, I don't want to be on it,
right?
And then you feel, and this is what I was getting at to relate to what you had said. It's like, I feel part of me has to be on it, but then I don't want to be on it.
Right.
How do you negotiate? How do you force yourself to do something that,
right,
is now kind of weird and foreign and not second nature?
I think the average person is constantly refreshing Instagram, like, how many times a day? Like every 10 minutes sometimes.
I bet you they have a stat for that.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. How many refreshes there are per user per day?
I think it would be a big challenge for people to go on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter once a day for, say, 10, 15 minutes scrolling. I think that would be a big challenge. I think it's almost every hour someone's checking.
Social media diet is what Mike is calling for.
That's right. Yes. That's what I'm here for.
A social media diet.
But it's also quite useful, obviously. I'm not like saying it's terrible all the time, but you need to find that balance, I find.
Do you use Twitter so much for news now, do you find?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm on Twitter. I follow, legitimate news organizations and get the news that way. But I'm also doing my own research as well, right? If you want to get the
I've
real
gone
stuff.
the app way.
The app way?
Yeah, I really, and that's one thing, and that's why I brought it up, is because I noticed that where I was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, that was like all my news came through Twitter.
Right.
Now it's kind of, I have like my sports app that I trust.
Right.
And then I have like 2 news apps that I trust, and that's it. That's how I take in all my news information.
Right.
Not so much on Twitter anymore. Which is just a weird, neat evolution of where this is all headed.
Yeah.
And I think it really proves that no one really knows where it's going.
Right. And there's obviously a lot of bias out there from different organizations. So I think the fact that you want to spread out, you want multiple sources of news.
This just in, Mike Valente likes blue shirts.
That's true.
Blue shirts, everyone.
Color. Yeah.
It might be a bias. You might also like other people in blue shirts.
I do. I think
hot
blue's a nice
ticket
color.
item.
What's your favorite color?
Blue. Ooh. I have a problem with this one.
Really?
Because
it seems very basic.
If I say red, everyone paints me as a psycho.
Why?
Because it's
that.
like high energy, crazy. I think I'm going to pick red because my pop filter right now is red.
Sure.
What's your favorite color?
Blue, probably.
Blue.
But red, I think, would be second.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
I think blue and green kind of fit in the same emotional space for me.
Sure.
Like they're both kind of calming and tranquil.
Yes.
And I really dig them. I don't know, but it has to be like a really good ocean green. This is new podcast alert. This is what we're going to do now. We're just going to sit together once a week and come up with new podcast ideas and then spend the rest of the week trying to hawk them off on people to pay money on it. This is for guys that don't understand paint colors. It's for the guy that only sees prime colors, and when his significant other is trying to paint the living room and she says, do you want eggshell foam or do you want turquoise bath mat, we can kind of break it down for him.
Is it weird that I kind of threw up in my mouth a little bit when you said turquoise bath mat?
I was stretching. But I would be shocked if there wasn't a color out there called turquoise bath mat.
I'm sure it is.
It's got to be something. But yes, it's by the men for the men. It's color breakdown. Mike, I think we got something here.
Break the color barrier.
We're gonna break the color barrier.
Yeah.
It's 2018.
True.
It's time to put our differences aside.
That's right.
And I don't see color. Let's be honest.
It's a very Stephen Colbert line from his old show.
Did you bring up Stephen Colbert? We were talking before we got started. Big TV guy?
I am a big TV guy. Big late night TV guy.
Oh.
Love a good drama series, comedy series. I'm all over it. I watch a lot of stuff.
So what's kind of hot ticket right now?
Late night is, well, it kind of goes to what we were talking about before, too. Like, obviously, the guy in the White House right now takes up most of the news, and that can get very tiring, at least for me, I think most people. So it's even hard to laugh at that sometimes. As much as Stephen Colbert, I think, is a genius, and Seth Meyers does a great job. Everyone does a great job, but it's every night they're talking about the same thing, so that can be a bit tiring. This is probably not what you were expecting, but the series I'm watching right now is the Larry Sanders Show.
Oh, I love Larry Sanders Show.
Yes, I had
100%.
never seen it. Gary Shandling passed away, 2 years ago now? Judd Apatow just released his documentary about it. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have seen it. I was anxiously awaiting it. I knew the whole time it's in production.
Right.
And because Judd was releasing like bits on social media back to this,
of course,
of who's going to be part of it. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I watched it a couple weeks ago. It's a 2-part series if people listening right now haven't seen it. 4 hours long, but it was one of the best things I've ever seen. Now, before I saw this documentary, I didn't really know much about Gary Shandling. Not my generation. Always knew of him, knew he was a comedian, knew he was quite peculiar. And then I watched this, and it's not only his life story, but his career story. And I just thought it was so brilliantly produced. I mean, how many people did they get in to talk about Gary's life and their friendship with him?
And everyone, how many he influenced and touched, like,
yes, mentored,
and inspired in one way or another, is unbelievable when you realize the ripples that someone has on a community,
for sure,
and how they affect everyone.
Yeah, so I've been on a binge of Larry Sanders. I think I'm in season 3 right now. But also like binge watching all this stuff on YouTube, all his interviews on talk shows and stuff. And what I've really garnered from his life and his career is just this man was very thoughtful. And yes, he was really funny, but he was also very insecure, and he was very kind of obsessed with how he came off with other people, which I think is all these qualities we can all relate to, right? But he's really made me think. I saw some interview with him on kind of like a talk show panel. I can't remember what the show was called, but he was on with Ray Romano, and it was a lot of talk about comedy. But there was a moment towards the end of this particular talk show where he got a bit deep, and he said, as people, we need to get away from ego. We need to get away from want, and competing with everybody. Can't we just do things with heart? Can't we just support one another and kind of get away from the want side and just appreciate and be grateful for what you have? And I just thought it was so touching. So he's kind of, I tend to have an obsessive personality. When I like something, I really like it. And Gary Shandling has really inspired me since this documentary came out. And, more to the point of social media and being constantly connected, like get away. Like he became very Zen later in his career and in his life. He became a Buddhist. He removed himself kind of from that show business bubble. And you got to respect that because he was very much in that bubble for many years, and it's hard to probably take yourself out of that.
And prominent in that bubble. And
totally.
I think what happens is for a lot of humans, like it's a human thing, a little bit of success goes very quickly to the head.
Totally.
And it becomes a drug, and you just want to keep feeding that.
Very
right?
addictive.
And success to a certain level, especially when it's inwardly determined, is a good thing. But when you allow success to be determined by the people you're around, it can be a very dangerous thing.
Yes.
And much to that point, you just keep feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. And you can go Hollywood, like you can put a bubble over that and say, oh, it just happens there. But you see it all like in different iterations in different walks of life. And that's because as dissimilar as we might seem, we're all very similar. And that's what I loved about Judd's approach on the documentary. But truly honest approaches that anyone takes when they drop the ego. I have really, in the last, let's say, year, started following writers that I admire, like mainly script writers that I admire, as well as a handful of comedians, because I've seen a rawness there where I, in a way, relate. I relate when you say you're obsessive. I'm like, I am totally obsessive.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to just jump into something. I want to drown myself in something,
right,
and be consumed and surrounded by it. But at the same time, I believe there's levels when you throw yourself into something like a job or a career change, and you surround yourself by it. That's also, I think, an indicator of a lot of insecurity in it, because you need everything that your brain touches to be in that circle, especially, as I said, when it's a career change. I'm totally talking. This is my couch. This is my couch session. So if you don't mind, I'm going to pay you. I'm going to pay you at the end of this.
Wow.
Just let me know what your rate is.
Fantastic.
I'm going to lay out on the green couch over here and just express myself. No, and I say this because 6 years ago I went from on camera to directing and producing, and then in the last 5 months, I went from being part of a very large sports organization to opening up my own production office. And that is the same career, but what happens is you're outside of your comfort zone. And for me, when I'm outside my comfort zone, I have to consume myself in whatever the new thing is, so that I feel like at some point I'll fit in.
Right.
Right.
I'll create a routine.
Yeah. If I think about it all the time, and if I never let go of it, and if I read about it and listen about it and watch about it and work on it, and if my whole day is tied up in it, then maybe eventually I'll get to the point where I fit in.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
In this new area. And so going back to Judd Apatow or Gary Shandling documentary, or his life, or any of the people, like a big one for me, the way you spoke about Gary Shandling is how I felt in the last, let's say, year and a half about I can't believe Chris Hardwick, who's Nerdist founder and comedian as well. That I feel this rawness in someone, and I'm like, oh, I can relate there, that we're not all as perfect as Kat Stefankovich. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
Call back to earlier in the episode, right? That we're not always as polished as people might think we are.
Right.
That
and we don't have to be.
You don't have to be.
We don't have to always be on.
Except you.
Well,
let's be honest. You dressed up for a podcast. I'm sorry, no one told you. There's no cameras here.
I just bought these pants. I think they look fantastic.
They are awesome, and I like your socks too.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of socks.
Yeah.
It's a nice. Is it a gray and maroon?
I don't know.
We're gonna call it wine. Like, we're gonna call it wine because this is colors from men by men for men. Whatever we're gonna call the podcast.
Yes.
Painting by color.
Oh my God! The tickets
by
are
men
printing
for
as
men.
they speak. Yeah.
We can do live podcasts where we paint on little canvases and we see, guys, this is what turquoise bath looks like.
That's funny.
So Westworld, were you a Westworld fan? First season?
I've seen about 5 episodes. It's been a bit slow for me.
A bit slow, that's fair.
But not bad.
Westworld's a big one for me. What else has been... TV is like, it's so hard at the moment because it seems like with all the platforms we now have to watch it on, like I might be missing a series on Crave TV,
right?
Because it's only over there.
There's a lot of stuff.
But Netflix, Lost in Space, Netflix just released a new Lost in Space series that a couple friends have said that it's pretty decent, and I actually was telling one the other day that it's a callback to like a 60s or 50s show, the old Lost in Space, and then there was Matt LeBlanc was in a movie called Lost in Space, going back to Friends again, maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Nice.
So I'm excited for that one.
Have you ever seen Matt LeBlanc's series Episodes?
Ooh, I haven't.
He plays himself like an actor after a big series. It's actually very funny.
He's not straying too far from the path there.
No, it's like, it works for him. But yeah, it's been on for like 5 seasons or something. But
he had a spin-off, didn't he, Joey?
Yes.
And
I don't think that worked out.
Seeing as though he's now
Can you imagine
doing episodes.
Imagine they were in like season 10 of Joey right now. It just really took off.
Everyone wanted to know where his acting career went. I was really, after that massive part as a doctor, I want to know where Joey ended up going. No, yeah, I don't think it did too
Check
well.
out episodes. It's very
Episodes,
funny.
yeah?
Yeah. He plays kind of like a jerkish version of himself, or maybe he's like that in real life. Who knows? He doesn't seem that way. He seems like a nice guy. But yeah, essentially the premise is these British producers made this amazing show like The Office. Now they want to bring it to the United States, and they cast Matt LeBlanc as the lead in their British takeoff of their series. So it's good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you ever see, I think it was called Studio 60?
Yes, I love that show.
So obviously the connection there for me was Matthew Perry.
Yes, that's right.
That was one of the leads in that. It only lasted one season. Which blows me away.
I know.
Because I love that show so much, and I've watched it more than once.
More of a drama version, but kind of like Larry Sanders, like behind the scenes of a Saturday Night Live type of show.
So that is an Aaron Sorkin creation.
Yes.
Which is interesting because he has 3 under his belt. He did, there's a sports one.
Was it Sports Night?
Sports Night.
Yeah,
it was
that
Sports Night, and it lasted at least 3 seasons, I think.
Yep.
And then he went on to do Studio 60,
right,
which was unbelievable and should have lasted a lot longer.
Yeah. Then The Newsroom.
And then The Newsroom, which I think is my favorite television show of all time.
Wow. That was it was really well done.
But it was interesting his desire to peel back the layers of something we all view regularly.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
He obviously was onto something because he wanted to do it over and over and over again, and he was interested in it.
Right. It's funny how TV works, too. Like, when Studio 60 debuted, so did 30 Rock. And a lot of people were saying at the time that Studio 60 was going to be the successful show and 30 Rock would fail, and it was the opposite.
Tina Fey.
Yeah,
the powers
Don't bet against her.
No, I wouldn't bet against her. And it's interesting that they went that way because it's funny that in a late night setting that they felt a drama... Right, when portraying behind the scenes of of that kind of thing, that everyone said, no, the drama's going to work and the comedy's not.
I know. Right. Yeah, it was interesting.
Especially when Tina Fey had all of 30 Rock behind her.
Yeah. And Sarah Paulson came from that show. She was in that show. Sarah Paulson's from, remember the OJ show?
Oh, yes.
The OJ show. She's been in, what else? She's been in a bunch of stuff in the last few years. Her career's really taken off. And the guy from The West Wing was in it. I'm great with names, as you can see.
Him, the guy from The Place.
Yeah.
And the person.
The face and the nose.
And the face, exactly. 2 eyes. Dylan actually showed me, I have to send you this after. There's a mashup, a supercut of Aaron Sorkin written things where people yell Belgium, right? The big one is Newsroom that most people remember is the first episode, the first 10 minutes,
right,
when he goes on that rant.
Yes, he's at some kind of speaker panel.
Yeah, the Will McAvoy character goes on a rant on how America could be better,
right?
And he kind of attacks one of the people on the panel because they said one of the reasons why America's great is because it has freedom.
Yes.
And he lists a whole whack of countries that has freedom. And one of them he says, Belgium has freedom.
Oh.
And apparently yelling Belgium is like a Sorkin-ish thing because you can go through a whole whack of his stuff that he's created and people yelling I'm gonna post this on our Instagram so everyone can know I'm not crazy.
I believe you.
But he totally, it's his thing to yell Belgium, which is pretty funny. I would love, a little Easter egg like that and everything that I did.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. That was a very famous scene from that show.
So I didn't get into it until, I think it was, they were midway through the second season airing it.
Gotcha.
And someone was like, oh, you need to watch the show. I think it's right up your alley. Mm-hmm. And they said, all you have to do is watch the first 10 minutes of the first episode.
Yeah.
And you'll know there.
You'll be hooked.
And you'll know. You'll know if you're going to like this because it's very wordy, right? Which is also very Aaron Sorkin. Mm-hmm. But if you like it after the first 10 minutes, you're going to like the series.
For sure.
And it had me hooked. And it ranks right up, if not the best for me.
Wow.
TV,
there you go.
I know.
Yeah, that's great.
Top shelf.
Totally.
So I want to let you're going into the playoffs, and I am talking about Westworld and the West Wing.
It's all good.
And everything
talk about
else
anything you want.
West of here. Winnipeg's West.
Yes. They're the gateway to the West. That's what we call them.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Would we say that? The Forks?
The Forks,
the Forks
that's
is
a big
the gateway
thing.
to the
Forks
West?
Market, yeah.
What were you doing in Winnipeg?
I was a sports reporter out there.
Why were you in? No, I'm joking.
A lot of people said that. Yeah. When I left, a lot of people said, why on earth would you do such a thing? But I loved it, Clay. I can genuinely say that it was such an amazing professional and personal experience. I lived there for 2 years, didn't know anything about Winnipeg really before I left, didn't know anyone there. And yes, it's cold. They do not lie about that. The first shoot that we did was on the Red River. It was minus 33, the temperature, not the feels like. And I said, I've made it. This is Manitoba. Bring it on. And it was great.
Come at me, bro.
I had like an 8-minute walk from the bus stop to my apartment. And sometimes that walk would feel like 2 years. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't going to make it. But Winnipeg's a place that toughens you up. It really does. It makes you appreciate little things because it will be minus 30 for a lot of the winter.
I would imagine the thinking behind it, like a lot of times to climb up markets, you got to start in a smaller market, and then you move and you bounce around. A good friend of mine, Julie Stewart-Banks, is an excellent example of that because she went to Winnipeg, actually.
Yes, that's
then she went to Regina, and then that helped her on her path into now being stateside, actually. So you move out. You're there. It's minus 33 your first day. What people have to appreciate, though, and I say this for a lot of people who come to move to Toronto for the first time, as harsh as the winters are, the summers are great. And that's when I went to Winnipeg.
Wonderful.
It was the middle of August.
Yep.
And it's gorgeous, the middle of August.
It is. And people are so happy that they're through the winter, that they're dancing in the streets. Like, honestly, I've seen people, or I did see people when I lived there, when it was like 0 degrees, 1 degree in like early spring, and people were on patios. So that gives you an idea of how they celebrate.
Anxious they are for a little bit of vitamin D. Winnipeg was the first time I ever bought a bucket of beer. Oddly enough, I don't know why it was the first time, but it was like, you get 8 bottles in one bucket and they bring it out to you.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a place I could live, I tell you, and then I never went back.
Which I think is common, but it shouldn't be. A lot of people would joke with me that I worked for Winnipeg Tourism because I was just constantly touting it. But it kind of, that suits my personality.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the type of guy that will embrace anything that's in front of me.
Yeah.
But I genuinely liked it. I wasn't just saying I liked it. I did. There's a ton of arts and culture there. The music scene there is fantastic. There was just it felt like a small town, and there's like 800,000 people living there, so it's not a small town, but it feels like it.
New podcast idea: the Winnipeg Minute, featuring Mike Valente.
Just give me a call once a week,
and the Winnipeg Minute's either going to be 15 seconds long because there's not really anything going on. Or on the flip side, the Winnipeg Minute is going to be 48 minutes long,
right? Because
you just talk around everything for a really long time because you're really inclusive and want to bring everyone together,
right?
Which it's kind of that's my take on the people of Winnipeg is I could start a conversation and never leave it because they could just chat about life for the whole time because people are about Winnipeg Minute. Starring Mike Valente. It's coming your way. I'll also paint by color, paint by numbers. The podcast by
many projects.
So many projects. We're trying to expand our brain here. Yeah. So I would imagine Manitoba Moose are pretty big in Winnipeg. Winnipeg Jets obviously are pretty big. Then you also have CFL team, which is
the Blue Bombers.
The Blue Bombers. Thank you very much.
They've struggled for a while, but the support is still there.
What are some of the different areas you explored doing sports out there? Because I bet you it wasn't all hockey and football.
No.
Even though that's maybe as a Toronto kid, that's what I would think.
Yeah. No, that's honestly one of the best parts of the job that I had out there was that it was a focus on community sports. So we would, I did a story on baton twirling one day. And that was one of my favorites, to be honest. And I'm not saying baton twirling is huge in Manitoba or anything, but obviously curling is big for them. I think there's more curlers, I'm not joking when I say this, there's more curlers in Manitoba than anywhere else in the world.
Per capita or just period?
I don't know, to be honest.
It might be period.
It might be period, yeah. And they have a very popular minor league baseball team there called the Winnipeg Goldeyes. They're part of the American Association. And that was actually a big part of my job. We would host live broadcasts of these games. So I was the host, I was the producer of Goldeyes Baseball. They won a championship while I was there, which was very exciting for the city. So yes, they're a very tight-knit community, especially in sports. My favorite was always kind of discovering these athletes that probably have a good shot at the Olympics one day. Track and field runner Victoria Tuchinski comes to mind. She just got a scholarship, I believe, in Pennsylvania. And she has, I think, a legit shot of making the Olympics one day. So years from now, if she does make it, even if she doesn't, it'll be a nice feeling to know that, hey, I talked to her when she was fresh out of high school with like this huge future, So yeah, there were a lot of moments where it's like you just appreciate the sport and the time and energy and certainly the skill level that goes into it.
Sports, for that reason, is interesting to me. And you can go down these paths with a lot of different areas and hobbies and interests in life. But people who dedicate so much time and focus and training to something that we might not even think of, like baton twirling.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it kind of sounds funny, but if you gave me a baton, I'd either just like punch it into the air or I'd drop it on the ground and that'd be it. Like
right.
you don't put much behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the idea of people putting so much focus into an area of their life. I watched this documentary once, and basically what it did in a little over an hour was it highlighted in England all these little societies. Like there is the Glass Bottle Collection Society, wow. right? And these people knew their glass bottles, and they had like people built massive collections of glass bottles that are over a century old. And they could tell you little bits and pieces of everything. They had the Roundabout Association, which did exactly what you thought. They marked, surveyed, and photographed every single English roundabout.
Wow.
And
there's really something for anything.
There's something for everyone. But I kind of love that about the world.
Yeah.
Is that if you like something that I don't understand, it means I can learn something. If I like something and you don't like it, that's cool, because I'm going to find a group over here. I went to my very first Comic-Con.
Nice.
Last month when I was in Toronto. One of the vendors invited me out. Unreal. Like blew my that's where my Bumblebee head came from.
Oh, nice.
But blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I understood the group I was with. I was with a group of people that really love something and kind of were a little bit obsessive over it.
Right.
And so maybe comic books aren't my thing, but obsessing over things totally is.
Right. We can appreciate that passion
exactly.
for whatever that passion is for.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's how I again connect with sports, because it's like you just see the inner workings of everyone's passion kind of coming through and resulting in something, and then you get the success. Like there's no better sports movie than when everyone lines up to the coach and want to give him their jersey so Rudy can play. He can dress for the last game in Rudy, right? There's no better feeling than the underdog getting the chance. And in a weird way, that's what we're all rooting for, even with our It's like one day I am actually going to be Spider-Man. Like if I dress up every day in a costume, like I will actually be him and be able to save someone, or my baton twirling might stop a bank robbery. Because I just have it in my backpack and I can huck it out.
One day in Winnipeg, it was like minus 30 degrees, and a guy tried to rob a bank, and the police officer said, "Freeze!" And he did.
Is that a Winnipeg joke?
It's one I made up, but let's call it a Winnipeg joke. That's what happens there in the climate.
Dad jokes with Mike Valente.
That's right. That's my passion project.
That's your passion project. Yeah. So you move back to Toronto, promptly get a job working with the Toronto Marlies.
Yes, that's right.
Which is has a really dear place in my heart because I worked with them for 3 years, 4 seasons.
Fantastic.
Four seasons, including the 2012 run to the Cup, which
that's right. Yes.
ended abruptly.
Right.
But still, that was the first time I ever got to go with a team to a championship game, which was unreal. How's it been? Have you enjoyed life at the Ricoh Coliseum?
I have loved it, Clay. It's been such a great experience.
It's such a gem, isn't it?
It is.
An old barn.
Oh, my God.
But right in the heart of the city?
For sure. It's a beautiful place to watch a hockey game. It's very intimate. There's about 8,000 seats in this place. If you haven't been to a game at Ricoh, you got to go. It's fantastic. And they're in the playoffs right now. But yeah, they've had a historic season. I mean, they set the record for most road wins by an AHL team, 29 wins. Best team in the league, literally. I'm not just saying that. So I think it's they had 54 wins total in the regular season. So They've done pretty well, so we're very excited for the playoffs. But it's been a great experience.
I remember, so the 2011-12 season where they went to the Cup was kind of a weird one where they that was, I think, year 2 under Dallas Eakins at the time, and they kind of built as they went, and they got these prospects coming out of college at the very end. Names of Jake Gardner.
Yes.
People might recognize that name. Nazem Kadri was on the team. Matt Fratton was on the team. Corbinian Holzer, who's still playing with Anaheim in the playoffs right now, was on that team. But then the next year, when they had, I think their previous point total high was 12. Actually, you might know this. May have been the 12-13 season.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it was that year. But see, it wasn't quite fair because up until January, the NHL was shut down.
Right, the
and
lockout.
so we had I'm so proud. They're still my team.
Once a Marley, always
a Marley. The Marlies had half the NHL contingent on the team.
True.
But this is exciting for a completely different reason. This is a dominant, mostly young, youthful Marley squad that has a whole future ahead of them and isn't being just borrowed for the year or for half of a year.
Yeah, totally. And how many of them did the Maple Leafs call up this year, right? Kapanen started the season with the Marlies. He's up with the Leafs. Dermott's now up with the Leafs. He was huge for the Marlies. Gauthier went back and forth a few times this year.
Freddie the Goat. I love the
Justin
Goat.
Hall obviously had a pretty good 2 games for the Leafs.
Yep.
He'll be there one day. That's always kind of really received my appreciation with the AHL, right? Because they're constantly changing their lineup with call-ups to the National Hockey League, to the Major League team. And the fact that they have maintained this chemistry the entire season is really impressive.
It puts, I think it really shows the true colors of the coach.
It
really puts him to the test because you have a couple things a couple expectations you're managing. First of all, you have a roster of 23 to 30 young men who you're trying to keep happy and keep minutes and keep upbeat and, keep them moving and progressing. But then you have a system that might not be your system that's passed down that you're trying to work within. You have, as you said, constant roster changes that you're trying to deal with on a nightly basis. And then you have an AHL schedule, which on its own can kick your butt.
Right.
3-3 is still a thing.
That is still a thing.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I remember the worst 3-3 I was ever in. It was Friday night in Toronto. Saturday, Grand Rapids was the furthest we'd bus without flying.
Oh, wow.
But it was in winter time.
Yeah.
So it was Saturday in Grand Rapids for an afternoon game.
Right.
Generally what would happen is we'd bus through the night, nap in the hotel, and then go to the game. But because the weather was so bad, we ended up arriving at the arena at right before 2:00. And
crazy.
There was a 3:00 game.
Yeah.
Then we had to get back on the bus for Sunday afternoon game back in Toronto.
It's crazy.
Man, they put in their time.
Yeah,
they
sure.
really do. So I have so much appreciation for the coaches there, and I think that's why it has a really good spot in my heart.
Totally.
So this is going to be weird though, because we're recording this on a Wednesday.
True.
The playoffs start
this Saturday.
But last Saturday, because when the podcast goes out,
sorry,
the Marlies will have played 2 games.
Yes.
It's Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
And let's just say the boys gave 110%.
That's right.
They went out there, but I got to give credit to the opposition. They put the best foot forward.
That's right. You got to give them credit.
The boys hit hard, they checked hard, they went deep, they put pucks deep.
They got pucks deep, yeah.
And they did all the right things in the right areas of the ice.
Right.
So, whether it be 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2 in the series, trust me, there's a lot of great hockey ahead.
For sure. Well said.
Thank you very much. How does the series break down home and away in a 5-game series?
So Saturday, Sunday at home for the first 2 games. I believe it's Tuesday, Thursday the following week, and then they're back home for Game 5, if needed, on the Sunday.
So this coming Sunday, you might be able to see your Toronto Marlies at home.
Yes,
for Game 5. If not, for Game 5. If not, it's because they're rolling on to the next round.
That's right.
It's because they're just going to keep... Mike's going to do the one thing I couldn't do, and he's going to take the team right to the championship.
We're
Lift
excited.
that Calder Cup, Mike, because within the organization you have Toronto FC, you have the Argos recently winning championships,
Yes.
you have Eastern Conference leaders, Toronto Raptors in the playoffs. Oh my goodness, you have the Maple Leafs. How do these people keep up?
I know. Honestly.
I feel bad for every one of the 50 Bay Street offices because everyone wants to do playoffs all at the same time, apparently.
But this is a nice change because it never
isn't it?
used to be like
Oh, my
this, right?
goodness.
So we're still, I feel like most Leaf fans or most Toronto sports fans really are still coming to grasps that this is now our reality, that most teams under MLSE actually do make the playoffs and have a legit shot of contending for their respective trophy.
I feel bad for all the pundits though that were like, they're just fine making their money in the regular season and they don't really want playoffs. Because screw you. Like you got nothing now.
Yeah.
You got to find a new excuse.
Right, exactly.
And if they only knew the amount of revenue that's generated in the playoff game, everyone wants to make the playoffs. It's crazy.
Yes.
I have Raptors season seats, and I saw how much my ticket prices went up in order to go to the playoffs, and I'm happy to pay it.
Right.
Take my money. I want to watch this team go right to the end. The year they went into the conference finals against Cleveland, it cost twice as much for those playoff games that happened over 6 weeks than it did the whole 41 games that I got before.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's a tough pill to swallow, but
course.
come on, we're all in it together.
Totally.
We're here for playoff basketball, hockey, soccer, football. Fill in.
As David Putty would say on Seinfeld, got to support the team.
Can we sign off with that?
Sure.
That's such a great sign off.
Sounds good.
Mike, I feel lighter. I feel
Me too.
refreshed. I have not looked at my phone in the last hour.
Hasn't it been nice?
I have collected like a new member into my community. We have come up with new podcast ideas. Like I learned about Winnipeg and their American Association team called the
Gold Eyes.
Gold Eyes.
Yes.
I was just about to say that. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Absolutely.
The Gold Eyes. We talked about the Blue Bombers. But I do like to end the podcast the same way every single time.
I've heard about this.
Have you?
I have listened to the show.
Are you prepared?
I think so.
You think so?
You lead me into it.
Okay. So it's important for me that everyone... it's important for me that I learn this, but to take care of the little things in life, because I think if we are looking positively and taking care of ourselves in little ways, then we're able to be the best version of ourselves when we're in front of other people. So I like to tell people, please, please, please,
eat your vegetables.
Thank you very much. Mike Valente.
Thank you so much
He's
for
a
having me,
boss.
Clay. I appreciate it. You're a good man.